How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store is running quite a few sales right now. Games under $20, mid-year deals, the sci-fi discounts, and level up. I'm mostly focusing on the mid-year and games under $20 sale in this video, just because those sales are going to end later this week. So one final video taking a look at games across a variety of different price ranges. So let's just get right into it. We're going to look at more expensive games. We've already done under 10, under 5, so you can look those up if you're interested in that, but let's get right into it, and let's start things off with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is 60% off for $24. Kinda wish this was a little bit cheaper. I mean, that's just me being really cheap, given that, you know, it's 14 months old, that's still kinda recent. To expect like a sub $15 price point. It is included with EA Play, so if you want to play the game, the trilogy, I should say, that way, that is an option as well. Mass Effect, obviously, I think many would consider Mass Effect 1 to 3 to be one of the greatest video game trilogies of all time. Mass Effect 1 definitely shows its age. It came out all the way back in 2007. They did what they did, try to modernize it, but you can still tell. 07. Mass Effect 2, on the other hand, I still think is one of the greatest games of all time. I do not think that is too much of a stretch to say that. I just think that game is tremendous from a narrative standpoint. Gameplay standpoint is such a step up from Mass Effect 1. Just an incredibly strong game with a good bit of content too. And then Mass Effect 3 is a pretty solid game in its own right as well. I know people's issue with Mass Effect 3, but overall, I would still say it's a pretty darn good game. $24 for the trilogy, I think, is a good pickup, so go check that out. Next up, another trilogy, Spyro Reignited Trilogy. That is 65% off for $14. Now, obviously, the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy was great, and Spyro Reignited Trilogy kind of followed in that footstep, but this was so much more so something that I enjoyed because, if you guys know me, I am incredibly nostalgic with Spyro. Spyro was one of the very first games I ever played in my life. PlayStation 1 was my first non-handheld console. We got Spyro, and I think it was Mega Man X4, and we played the hell out of Spyro, and it was just a great time. And this Reignited Trilogy brings all three games, ups the visuals quite a bit as well, and they're still very enjoyable platformers. So $14 for Spyro Reignited Trilogy, I think is a great pickup. Definitely would give that a shout. They do have some bundles on sale that include like Insane Trilogy and Crash Team Racing, so if you want to check that out, that is an option as well. Those bundles get pretty pricey though, so just bear that in mind. Next up, we have Danganronpa 1 and 2 Reload. This is 60% off for $16. Man, Danganronpa was a game that I played years and years ago on the PlayStation Vita, and it surprised the hell out of me. I was listening to a podcast one time, and the host just could not stop raving about Danganronpa, so I literally went to GameStop, like, later that week, and I picked up Danganronpa 1, and yeah, I wasn't into visual novels back then. It was just a new genre I was getting into, but Danganronpa absolutely hooked me. Give this game 30 to 45 minutes, and I guarantee you Danganronpa 1 will hook you into the story, and then it's just a thrill ride from there on out. I don't want to get into too many of the specifics, and Danganronpa is such a hard game to describe what it even is. Kind of a murder mystery, a lot of twists and turns, just a very narrative-driven experience that's high quality in all regards. Obviously, a little bit quirky, a little bit zany, a little bit might be putting it mildly, but Danganronpa is a great time, and you get both games here for 16 bucks. Danganronpa 3 is on sale as well. That's $16 standalone, so you can check that out if you're interested as well. Next up, we have Valkyrie Chronicles 4, the Complete Edition, 70% off for $14.99. Talk about Valkyrie Chronicles quite a bit, and I rave about it often. With VC4, the Complete Edition, you do get all the DLC. Some of the DLC is just memes, but some of the DLC is actually pretty notable. A United Front with Squad 7 DLC, you've got a Captainless Squad DLC, and then you have more meme DLCs as well. But Valkyrie Chronicles 4 alone, the base game is a fantastic game. Obviously a tactical JRPG with a fantastic watercolor art style that is just going to age really well. Like Valkyrie Chronicles 1 from 2008 still holds up really strongly. And VC4, obviously a very good game from a story standpoint as well. Gameplay is done well, and if you want an easier experience, you can play it on easy mode. I won't judge you, and the game is really solid. A lot of content here as well, so definitely would give that a recommendation. I think $15 for Valkyrie Chronicles 4 is a great pickup, so definitely go check that out. Next up, you know, Assassin's Creed these days isn't really my cup of tea, but my, love for the older Assassin's Creed games aside, Assassin's Creed Odyssey Gold Edition I still think is a pretty solid pickup. 75% off for $25. And I know a lot of people, my opinion aside about the new style Assassin's Creed game, that love these games. I just had a buddy play Origins, Odyssey, and now he's on Valhalla in the span of like 4 weeks. And if you know how much content these games have, that's kind of insane. And he's loving those games. And I have a lot of friends that really dig the new Assassin's Creed games, and I know a lot of people online really dig the new style of Assassin's Creed games. Nonetheless, the Gold Edition of AC Odyssey will get you Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It'll get you the Season Pass, 2 major story arcs, Day 1 bonus mission, and on top of all of that, you get AC3 Remastered and AC Liberation Remastered, so you get an older style Assassin's Creed game with this as well. Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't my absolute favorite. I like some of the elements in it, just thought it was a little bit slow-paced at first. But yeah, it's still a pretty solid game. I enjoyed it for what it was, and the Gold Edition, I think, for $25, given that you just get AC3 on top of that, given that AC Odyssey will keep you busy for a very long time, I think that's a worthwhile pickup. Next up, we have The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel, 50% off for $19.99. Another JRPG franchise that when I get to talk about it, I rave about it. You know, there's a lot of debate online on how you should tackle these games. There's so many games in the Legend of Heroes series that a lot of people think you shouldn't start with Trails of Cold Steel. Now, Trails of Cold Steel is kind of its own arc, but it definitely has some references and very much attached to the other Legend of Heroes games as well. There's a really good video out. Just look it up, Legend of Heroes story overview or something like that, and there's somebody, I'll leave a link in the description box below, that does a really good job outlining how you should play the games if you do want to play the games in a different order. I personally, the first Legend of Heroes game that I ever played was Trails of Cold Steel. I played like a couple of them back in the day on PSP, but they are completely like out of my memory. That you know, essentially the first one I played was Trails of Cold Steel that I retained knowledge of, and I really enjoyed it. Now, Trails of Cold Steel 1 is a lot of setting the table, setting the story foundation of what to expect out of the other Trails of Cold Steel games, but by the second half of Trails of Cold Steel, don't get it twisted, it's guns blazing, it gets pretty wild, and even the first half, like introducing you to the characters and developing them, they do a pretty good job with that. Solid turn-based battle system, great soundtrack as well, and obviously from a narrative standpoint, world-building standpoint, Legend of Heroes is seen very, very highly. Trails of Cold Steel 2 is excellent as well. 3 and 4 get kind of wild, maybe, you know, a little bit wilder than necessary. But they're all really solid games in my opinion, and $19.99 for Cold Steel 1 is great. And by the way, if you're looking like to do everything out of this game, you can spend like 80 to 100 hours. It's a sizable game. Next up, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot Deluxe Edition is $25.49. This will get you DBZ Kakarot, the base game, as well as the Season Pass. I talked about this quite a bit. I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. I've become more of a bigger Dragon Ball fan in like the recent months. I don't know why. I just kind of like found my love again for DBZ. But yeah, Kakarot's a game that obviously fundamentally, if you just assess it as an RPG as a non-Dragon Ball fan, it's not a blow-away game. But if you are a Dragon Ball fan, it does a pretty good job of recreating the DBZ storyline in an open-world RPG. Now, there are some things that, like, got cut out that are just completely head-scratchers, and, yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer. It does a fairly good job through the whole Frieza arc. Even then, there's a couple of things cut out. The Cell Saga, and I love the Cell Saga, there's a couple things cut out of that. Particularly, one major thing that is just kind of a head-scratcher, but overall, still a quality game, and you get the Season Pass here as well. A lot of content. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, you'll enjoy the game. I thought it was a good time. $25.49, I think, is a good pickup, so go check that out if you're a Dragon Ball fan. Next up, we have Alan Wake Remastered. $18 if you're a Plus subscriber. I love me Alan Wake. I played Alan Wake all the way back in 2010 when it came out, and, you know, it didn't sell all too great. Came out as a $60 game, was like a 7 to 8 hour long game, and not a lot of people checked it out, but it's a very good game. Now, the remastered is fairly decent. It does include the DLC content as well. I wasn't as hot on the DLC content, but overall, I still think it's a good third-person shooter with some interesting mechanics and obviously a really strong story attached to it as well. Alan Wake 2 is coming out in 2023. Not a bad time to check out Alan Wake 1. Definitely would give that a shout. Next up, we got The Walking Dead, the Telltale Definitive Series. 50% off for $25. I mean, this is just a banger deal, given that you got all 4 seasons, 400 days, and Walking Dead Michonne. That's a lot of episodes, and Walking Dead Season 1, Season 2, I think, are tremendous. Season 3 is fairly good, and then Season 4 is very good as well. I definitely think Season 1 and 2 are the strongest. I probably am partial towards Season 1. I mean, whenever a story-driven game can make you tear up, I'm pretty partial towards that, and Season 1 definitely made me do that. So $25 for that, I think, is a great deal. A lot of content for your money, so would give that a shout. Next up, another game that I constantly rave about, Scarlet Nexus. 50% off for $29.99. I guess I don't constantly rave about it since I haven't been seeing it go on sale all that often, but I really enjoyed Scarlet Nexus. One of the more surprising games to me of 2021 in the sense of how much I enjoyed it. Like, I was looking forward to Scarlet Nexus. Whenever there's a new IP, JRPG, I'm gonna be excited for that game, but I really dug Scarlet Nexus. I thought the soundtrack was great. The fact you had 2 playable main characters, highly would recommend you to start off with Yuito's storyline. That's really good and adds quite a bit of replayability to the game. Of course, they've kept it updated, they've added some things to it. And if you're looking to do everything, both playthroughs, I mean, it can be a pretty lengthy game. 50, 55 hours around that range isn't a stretch at all. And I thought the combat was good. Visually, you know, it's fine. I know the lack of a lot of high-end cutscenes was kind of an annoyance to people, but I think overall it's still a great game. You know, some retreaded enemies and locations, but overall still thought it was a quality title. $30, I think, is a great pickup. Next up, we have Dead Cells, which is 50% off for $12.49. This is a part of PlayStation Plus Extra, so you can play it that way if you want. This is one of those games that I can constantly go back to, and it's like that game that if I don't know what to play, I can always pop in Dead Cells and have a good time with. Initially, when I started playing it, I was like, okay, don't really see what all the fuss is about. Seems like a pretty standard roguelike title, and then as you play more and more of it, and you realize that this game has a ton of depth to it, so many different weapons, so many different enemy types and everything like that, and the visual style is just awesome, and the different locations you go to. I think the game looks great, and definitely well deserved of the praise that it receives. Obviously, there's some DLC to the game as well, so you can check that out. There is a Road to the Sea bundle, but that's $33. It's not on sale right now, so that's a little bit of a bummer. But nonetheless, $12.49 for that, I think is quite good. Lastly, gotta give a shout to Hades, even though it's not seeing a steep discount, 25% off for $18.74. This is a game that I've been meaning to jump back into, and I'm probably gonna do that pretty soon. 25% off for $18.74. It's a Supergiant Games title, and it's a game that has been received incredibly well. I mean, it got a ton of Game of the Year awards, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting, but it's got an awesome art style, a pretty strong story attached to it as well. Gameplay's great, and if you're a fan of roguelites here as well, you're gonna enjoy it quite a bit. It's been received incredibly strongly by everyone that I've talked to, and while I haven't played enough of it as I probably should, I'm going to rectify that issue here very, very soon. So, yeah, I would imagine that, you know, if you're picking it up, $18.74 is not a huge discount, but I still think that's a fairly good pickup. But that is going to do it for me. Again, a ton of great deals available right now. Seems like you guys are still buying your games, even though for a lot of people, you've moved on to Plus Extra, but, you know, not everything's on Plus Extra. Some of you guys like owning your games. You guys get the deal. That's gonna do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.